For decades, the historical consensus on Somali origins was incredibly straightforward. According to the accepted timeline, Arab traders crossed the Gulf of Aden from Yemen and settled on the East African coast about 3,000 years ago. Every textbook agreed, and every history class taught this identical migration narrative. It remained the definitive explanation until 2014, when a genomic analysis at Imperial College London put the theory to a biological test. The results of that study showed a genetic signature that did not match Arabia. It did not match Egypt. In fact, it did not match any currently living population outside of Africa. The written historical record detailed a clear, recent migration. The biological data, sitting inside modern cells, entirely rejected that timeline. When the physical evidence contradicts the established texts, the history has to be rewritten. This chart tracks the lactase persistence allele. Over 50% of people in Arabia carry it, making it a reliable marker of Arab ancestry. If Somali people descended from Arabian migrants, that allele should be everywhere in their DNA. Instead, the Somali data reveals just 1.6%. That tiny percentage is statistically impossible for a population born from an Arabian migration. It is the signature of a group that received almost zero dominant genetic input from the Middle East. The glaring absence of the lactase persistence marker officially breaks the 3,000-year migration myth. To find the real foundation of Somali ancestry, scientists realized they had to look tens of thousands of years deeper into the past. Inside the Somali genome, researchers identified a distinct dominant layer of DNA. They classified it officially as the Ethio-Somali ancestry component. Through rigorous statistical modeling, geneticists calculated that this specific component is at least 23,000 years old. That date predates recorded writing, early agriculture, and the construction of the Egyptian pyramids by millennia. This component belongs to an ancient back-to-Africa migration. The ancestral population left the continent, evolved in isolation for thousands of years, before finally returning back into the Horn of Africa. When these returning migrants arrived, they didn't wipe out the local inhabitants. Ancient DNA sequenced from regional burial sites shows that they merged with deeply isolated indigenous hunter-gatherers who had already lived on that land for tens of thousands of years. In genetics, this ancient merged group is called a ghost population. They left behind no name, no identified archaeological ruins, and no written language. They vanished entirely from the physical world, surviving today only inside the cells of living Somali people. The Somali genome rests on an incredibly ancient 23,000-year-old genetic foundation that represents one of the oldest standalone lineages in human history. The depth of this ancestry is mirrored in the paternal lines. The dominant Somali Y chromosome marker, known as E1B1B, wasn't imported from the Middle East. It originated right in the Horn of Africa, approximately 19,000 years ago. From that birthplace, the E1B1B marker was carried outward, spreading over thousands of years into the populations of North Africa, the Mediterranean, and ancient Egypt. The maternal side reveals a similarly vast timeline. Over 60% of Somali maternal ancestry belongs to the L3 mitochondrial DNA group, a direct, unbroken genetic line passed from mother to daughter. L3 is the maternal ancestor of every single non-African human being alive on Earth today. If an individual's ancestors left Africa at any point in prehistory, their maternal line traces directly back to this specific group. A recent 2020 molecular analysis from the University of Helsinki identified an unusual structural uniformity within the Somali immune system. This funnel visualization shows a genetic bottleneck. The extreme uniformity in the immune data indicates that the population suffered a catastrophic near-extinction event. They collapsed to a tiny fraction of survivors, and those few individuals passed their specific, hard-fought survival traits to all future generations. The modern Somali genome serves as a living biological archive. It carries the oldest maternal lineages on the planet, alongside the distinct evolutionary scars of a forgotten apocalypse. Modern data also reveals a sharp geographic split within the genome itself. Coastal Somali populations carry measurably different genetic markers than the inland pastoralists living far from the water. The coastal genomes contain higher levels of West Eurasian and Arabian admixture. When researchers mapped these genetic signomes, they aligned perfectly with known maritime trade routes from 2,000 years ago. This outward genetic flow identifies the coastal populations as the primary operators of a massive Indian Ocean trade network. Meanwhile, the inland genome tells a completely different story. Geographically isolated from the bustling maritime ports, the inland pastoralists preserved the 23,000-year-old ghost population DNA in an almost entirely undiluted state. This biological divide outlines two simultaneous realities existing side by side: a globally connected coastal empire trading with the known world, running parallel to an inland vault preserving pure human prehistory. None of these ancient genetic layers erase Islamic lineage. Islamic genealogy relies on faith, names, and community to track heritage, while genetics strictly measures cellular biology. Both records exist, and both are true. One documents 1,400 years of recorded belief and tradition, while the other physically maps 23,000 years of biological survival. Yet the science is still uncovering new complexities. Deep in the Ogaden interior, archaeologists have recently unearthed human remains containing an entirely unknown third genetic profile. This newly discovered DNA is a complete anomaly. It does not match the ancient foragers. It doesn't align with the 23,000-year-old ghost population, and it sits completely outside every living group we've discussed today. We'll be investigating who these people were and how their DNA redraws the map of human prehistory in the next episode. Subscribe and turn on notifications to follow that discovery.